Hello, everyone. Last of Us TV show is finally out. I just watched episode one. It was pretty good. And I am going to do a review on the episode and talk about it. But first, before I do that, I want to just talk about Last of Us in general and just take some time to appreciate the franchise as a whole. Because a lot of my viewers are relatively new to my channel. You don't know the whole history of my beginnings and just history with the franchise and everything. So I want to go back to the very beginning first. My first exposure to Last of Us was my sophomore year in college in an off-campus apartment. This was September of 2013. So the game had been out for 3 years, and the PS4s were right around the corner. But I never owned a PlayStation 3. I had a Wii instead. Actually, let me see if I can do this without breaking it. Hold on. It's right here. This is the Wii I had back in 2008. And I loved it. I don't regret the purchase. But I didn't own a PlayStation 3 until the PS4s came out. And that was to play Last of Us. I walked in on my college roommate, his name's Paul, playing it. And he was in the hotel basement chapter. And, towards the end of high school, beginning of college, I wasn't gaming much. If I was, it was Mario and Nintendo. But I missed out on the whole PS3 generation. So my roommate Paul had a PS3, and I walked in on him playing Last of Us. He was in the hotel basement chapter. I'm like, "Who's that?" "That's Ellie." And he just was telling me about it. I looked up reviews, nothing but 10 out of 10. So I gave it a playthrough for myself on his PlayStation 3, not even my own. And then it was, how we all perceived it at the time. One of the greatest things we ever played at the time. And that in turn led me to buying my own PlayStation 3 just so I could play Last of Us on my own console. And I literally just played it for a year. Because it was just so captivating. I know as time goes on, some of that initial impact may be lost. But I want you all to just think back to June of 2013 or September of 2013 or even July of 2014 if we played the remastered version, because remastered's the exact same game. It just looks a little bit better. And just, I don't want it to get lost, the initial impact that game had on the industry and us all. Because I know you guys see me as the Last of Us speedrunner guy. But it wasn't always like that. I didn't just pick up the game because it was popular and hope to get a Twitch following out of it. It started out of a love for the game. It was. I'm taking this time now to appreciate the impact that game had on the gaming industry and all of us as individuals. Just how goddamn good it was. And nothing like it had really been done before. And yeah, when remastered was announced, that's when it was my 21st birthday. I wanted a PS4 with Last of Us so I could play the better looking version of it, and that's exactly what I got. And then it was a month later I started speedrunning it because like I said, I had been playing it for a year, and where was I going with this? I was playing it for a year, and it was just starting to develop. It was I loved watching the cutscenes over and over and over. So I was like, let me try and get to the cutscenes quicker. That's how it all kind of started. I was like, there has to be some gameplay strategies that can get me to the cutscenes faster. And that again, that's how my hobby and career originated. And so that's what I did. I spent time in areas. If my old college roommates were here, I remember I was practicing something that worked in financial district. They went out for dinner. They were gone for 2 hours. They came back. I was still performing. It's like, you're still doing this? I'm like, yeah. That was my first speed running grinding session ever. That might have still been in 2013, maybe early 2014. But yeah, again, just the impact the game had on all of us just can never, ever be forgotten. Again, as time goes on, maybe sometimes that can be forgotten, or maybe you sometimes think, was it as good as I remember it being? But then you think about that first playthrough, and it was. It was. It really, really, really was. And I especially just had like a deep admiration for the game. It was like nothing I had ever seen or played or experienced before. And then it was around when Remastered came out, that's when I started like actually streaming and speedrunning. And who would have thought all these years later, doing that led to my eventual career? For those who don't know, speedrunning Last of Us, Part 1, Part 2, the original, Left Behind, that's my full-time job on Twitch, on YouTube, all the fun stuff. That's my full-time job. And in a way, I guess I literally dropped out of college to play Last of Us. So again, the impact that this game had on my life, it can't be overstated. And I know sometimes I may like give it a hard time because I play it in a way that is not intended by developers and definitely not by Neil Druckmann. But it all started out of love and admiration for the game. And again, as time goes on, look, you speedrun a game for as long as I have, it sometimes that magic can be lost, or your opinion of it can go down. Ask any speedrunner. Usually their opinion of the game they're running plummets the longer they play it. And that's happened to me a little because all that is flooded into my eyes are the negatives of the game, you know, things that should work but don't, or things that are broken or something like that. But again, let's all take a moment, or like for as long as the TV show goes, to just remember just how important this game was when it first released. And again, I have a career playing the game because of just how damn good it is. Now, where do I go with this? As for the TV show, in chat, I had been mentioning I wasn't really like super duper looking forward to it. Now, there's a reason for that. It's a funny reason. It's not the reason you would expect. I'm not super excited for the TV show because of M. Night Shyamalan. Let me explain. One of my favorite television shows of all time is a cartoon from 2005 called Avatar: The Last Airbender. You've probably heard of it. You've probably seen it. I always liked that show. I didn't discover it later on in life. I watched it when it was new back in 2005. 18 fucking years ago. Oh, that's fucking disgusting. Anyway, 11-year-old me thought it was the coolest thing ever. I loved it. And it's aged very well. I haven't watched it in a very long time, but I remember it very fondly. What the hell does any of this have to do with Last of Us, or the TV show? Well, a couple years after the show ended, M. Night Shyamalan made a live-action movie about the show's first season. It's the worst movie ever made in cinematic history. I'm not kidding. It's the worst film in movie history. I think it currently holds a 7%, and that's being generous. The TV show has like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's like the 8th best TV show on IMDb's website. I always liked it, even still. Breaking Bad's my all-time favorite show because those two shows are so similar. Childhood nostalgia plays a big part in it. I was in like its prime target demographic. But then M. Night Shyamalan comes along and makes the worst adaptation ever. And I truly believe that movie was so traumatizingly bad that I just never ever gave a shit about adaptations after that. I'm being like 10% kidding and 90% serious when I say that. It was so horrible that I think I just naturally just don't care about adaptations. Another part of it is, you know, just the fact of what adaptations really are. You're taking source material, characters, And in an adaptation, they look different, they sound different, they act a little different, but you're calling them the same person as the source material. And that just never really gelled in my mind. I never ever really liked that. I'm not shit talking the TV show because I'm the trailers look good and all, and I'm sure a bunch of people are going to love it, especially people who've never played the games. But yeah, I don't really like adaptations that much because again, you're taking characters, you're adapting them, they're going to look different, sound different, talk different. And I just never really saw the appeal, never really saw the point. An example of that is, well, again, I blame M. Night Shyamalan for that, but I've still never seen the Uncharted movie. The performances of Nolan North, Richard McGonagle, Claudia Black, Troy Baker, and who else? God damn it. Emily Rose, that's the one I'm forgetting. Sorry, Emily. Those are just like permanently like just in our brains forever. Their performances, their voices, their mannerisms. It's gonna like transcend just uh, multiple generations and their performances and everything. It's timeless, especially their voices. They're permanently in my head forever, in my memory. The movie, I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's fine, but you can't convince me that those are the same characters. And that's the biggest thing that's like putting me off from giving it a chance. So, yeah, when the TV show was announced, I was like, well, HBO, they have a really good track record. They make good quality stuff. So like I'm happy for people who were a part of the project and people who are looking forward to it. But me personally, I just wasn't that excited because again, it's one of those things. You're gonna take the characters we know and love. You know how much I play Last of Us, Joel and Ellie and Bill and Tommy and their dialogue and it's etched in my memory forever as long as I live. You're gonna change how they look, change how they sound, change how they act a little bit, but you're gonna call them the same person. It just never ever sat well with me. And again, the reason I didn't talk about this much is because it's like that meme. It's like, shh, let people enjoy things. So I don't want people to think the way I think. It's just how I feel. A lot. You're going to be asking me in my live streams, what did you think about this? How do you feel about this? And I've been getting them. And I don't want to like disappoint people by saying, oh, I'm not looking forward to it at all. And that's not completely true in this case. I just finished watching the first episode and I actually liked it. I'll get it into like an official review in a second. But yeah, I'm choosing the release of the TV show to instead embrace and celebrate the franchise as a whole instead of just being this angry man yelling at a cloud like don't ruin the original. I may have felt that way at first, but I don't anymore. Like I said, I'm going to choose now to instead celebrate the franchise that I love and has blessed me with a career that I love. Even at times it may not look like I love it, I do. Okay? I still show up. I do love it, especially as time goes on. I still play it, so that must mean I enjoy it, right? I do. But yeah, let's get into a review of the first episode of the TV show. Now, I'm not a professional TV reviewer. I don't have any like B-roll footage to show or anything. I watched it at my mom's place. I came back here. I don't have HBO. My mom and my dad do. So I watched it there, it came back here, and now I'm just going to talk about it from memory. So I'm probably going to forget things or misinterpret things, and again, I'm not a professional reviewer, I'm a speedrunner. But I'll give it my best shot. And I'll talk about some like things I liked or didn't like, and complete spoilers, by the way. If you haven't watched it, do not watch beyond this point. I am giving you a warning, okay? But yeah, how did the show start? It started out with like a talk show kind of thing, talking about like in 1968, I think, how, what could bring like the human like the human race to its knees, and that's like a fungal outbreak where we can't fight back no matter what. That like lays the foundations for it. And the opening title sequence had the same music as the original, which I really appreciated. Music from the game was used quite often in the first episode, and I was pointing it out. I was probably annoying the hell out of my mom watching it with me. She was a good sport watching it with me. She actually kind of liked it too, but I just kept saying it. That's from the game. That's right from the game. That's from the game. I probably annoyed her, but yeah, I like the fact that some of the original music was used in certain spots. Um, yeah. Now the original in the game, Last of Us starts out like at night with Joel and Sarah watching some TV and her giving him a watch. In the show, it kind of starts out like how the day started instead of what's just happening at night. And it was just showing their daily routine. They were talking about the construction job that Joel and Tommy had, and just them Sarah going off to school and then coming home, but also their neighbor showing symptoms of the outbreak before anyone else with like some coughing, some twitching, and yeah, that led to the night scene, which was pretty close to the original game. Her giving him the watch, saying I sell hardcore drugs, all that stuff. The one thing I think that was different, well, there were a couple things that were it wasn't a one for one recreation of the whole thing, but um, what was it? Tommy was in jail, and Joel had to go bail him out. I'm trying to think if that like could actually work in the original, if that like actually could have been a thing, like in the time frame from when Sarah went to sleep until she woke up. I don't remember. Probably not, because Tommy's the one that woke Sarah up, and in the show, what wakes Sarah up is just helicopters and explosions. And then what gets her out of the house in the show, Sarah never leaves her house until Joel comes and gets her. But in the game rather, in the show, she goes. There's a dog clawing at the door, and the dog. Sarah tries to return the dog to the neighbor, but the dog doesn't want to go in there, so she investigates inside. That's where she finds it infected. She gets chased out of the house. That's where Joel and Tommy come in and save her. And Tommy doesn't use a brick. Joel uses like a wrench to kill her instead. And then that's when they kind of drive away. And it plays out pretty similarly to the game. The only difference really is how the car crashes. In the game, the car crashes from another car ramming them. In the show, there's an airplane that crashes, and one of the engines like rams into the car, and that's how they all get knocked out and stuff. And instead of them running through the streets, the three of them, they get separated. Tommy and Joel and Sarah get separated at the car, and then they go their separate ways. But then after that, it pretty much plays out exactly like it is in the game. And I will admit, I got a little teary-eyed at the Sarah death scene. It was done very well. I don't know how you could have done a better job with it, honestly. Like, what could you have changed to make it better? It's obviously like the scene in the game. So like, what can you do in the show to do it justice? Just do it again. And they did. It was the emotional gut punch that it needed, especially for people who had never played the games. It was very well done. Now, what I really liked, somewhat sadistic, but I like how the 20 years later starts off with a random infected girl showing up to the QZ, and they show the lethal injection there. In the game, it starts off with Joel, and then you see the lethal injections as you're walking the streets, as they're scanning people who were trying to escape or did escape or something. Yeah, they showed the lethal injection there, and I thought that was pretty good. It lets the viewers know that you're taking your show or source material seriously. You're going to euthanize a frickin' child. You can't get any more serious than that. One child isn't enough. We're going to kill 2 children. Damn. Yeah, again, I only watched this once. I don't have HBO to bring up on me. The the whole situation with Robert was a little different, and with Joel. Joel, he's it's revealed early on that he's a smuggler. This was one thing I liked. I liked how immediately one thing I always liked about Joel the character is his just complete detachment from his humanity emotionally. He's almost not human with how detached emotionally he is as a human being. And they brought in a truck with the corpse of that girl they had to euthanize because she was infected. Even Tess was like, I can't do this. And Joel just did it without hesitation. He's the ultimate just whatever. That's one thing I always liked, how he just hides his emotions. He's an emotional guy. He just hides them all the time. That's what I always liked about him. So yeah, that got the point across, just how much he changed as a person over 20 years. You didn't need to show the stuff in between. You can just get it from that one scene. So I kind of like that. But the one big change was that Joel he's still a smuggler, but he's looking for a battery for a car to go find Tommy in Wyoming. I think it's Wyoming. Yeah. That storyline doesn't pick up really until like just before Billstown. As you know, in the game, Joel's tasked with taking Ellie to the Fireflies. He doesn't know where the Fireflies is, so he's going to find Tommy, who used to be a Firefly. And to get to Tommy, they need a car, and Bill knows how they can get them a car. That's how the game works. But in the show, Joel is in Boston looking for a battery and a car to go find Tommy. I'm not sure why yet. I think he just wants to find him again. But yeah, that was an interesting change. I'm not really, like, it's probably going to play out similarly to how it is in the game. But it looks like what Joel is tasked with Ellie is just going to coincide with that this time around. Yeah, what's next? The thing with Tess and Robert, they don't really go. They do go and try to kill Robert, but when they get there, they pretty much find out he was already dead from another botched deal. And that's where they meet up with Marlene. So it played out a bit similarly to the show, to the game, except in the game, you meet with Marlene, and then the three of them go to where Ellie is, and that's when they have the discussion about taking her to like the hideout and then the Capitol building. But all the things with first meeting Marlene and then Ellie popping out trying to stab Joel, that all happens like when you first meet Marlene. So it's basically a combination of the two Marlene cutscenes in Boston. And that's fine. It's almost like they're just cutting out the gameplay in between. And when they are smuggling her out of there, Joel was like making deals, like drug deals with one of the military men inside the QZ, and that's the guy they find that like busts them as they're trying to escape the quarantine zone, and that's when Joel kills him because you know how that scene plays out. Ellie stabs him, he's going to shoot them, and I like how it kind of flashed back to the light from the gun staring down Joel and Sarah. It probably just triggered some PTSD in him, so he just went fucking crazy on his face and his jaw. It's the first chance you got to see it, Joel being just Joel, just a monster, really. But yeah, it was kind of interesting how they almost made it comedic, like it was the same guy instead of just two random soldiers. Again, it's a change, not really like a negative, just an observation. And, oh, God, there are some other things. I'm just trying to think. I like the fact that Marlene is played by her voice actress in the game. I think she's the only person to make it in both projects. I'm pretty sure Troy and Ashley are going to be in the show as well, but not as the characters they portrayed, obviously. But Marlene's voice actress got to play Marlene in the show, and I think that was really cool. As for Ellie acts pretty good as Ellie. Some of the dialogue I could like see coming. Like there were a couple instances where I was just saying the dialogue that was supposed to come because I just expected it to come. I was basically quoting some of the lines before they happened right next to my mom. She was just like, um, but yeah, overall, I think it did a pretty good job. I'm obviously forgetting some stuff. There were some scenes with Tess, like they were showing some scenes with Tess before, like her and Joel meet after he wakes up 20 years later. That I don't think it played out exactly how it does in the game, but the point is they were going to get Robert, and instead of killing themselves, they already found him dead because of a botched deal that he was trying to do. So it's whatever. They changed some things to just make it more convenient for television. Again, the big plot difference between the game and the TV show in the first episode, I'd say, is Joel's already looking for a battery for a car to go and find Tommy while he's in Boston. That definitely was not part of the game. But again, with the task that Joel is going to be handed, the two goals kind of, I'm guessing, will coincide together. So yeah, overall, I actually did enjoy it. And I wasn't expecting to. Again, with the reasons I mentioned prior. But I gave it a chance, and I actually did enjoy it. There were some like moments in the beginning where my heart was racing, eyes got a little teary. I got a little teary eyed during the scene. Don't even have to mention it. But, I was thrown back a little bit by some of like the physical differences in the actors portraying. Like Tommy didn't look like Tommy, Sarah didn't look like Sarah, Ellie sort of didn't look like Ellie. But then for some of them, I closed my eyes and was imagining them talking, and the vocal similarities were very good. And I also came around to like Pedro Pascal's Joel interpretation. I would say he probably sounds the least like Joel. Like the guy who plays Tommy, he sounds a lot like Tommy. Doesn't look like him all that much, but he sounds a lot like him. And I thought Sarah sounded like Sarah. It was cool. If you close your eyes, you could almost trick yourself into thinking it was the game. Just the vocals of them were very spot on, and I thought that was. I liked it. I did. I liked it. And one thing I got to mention is the show. The first episode ends just as they're like in front of the downtown building, like the leaned over building that they go in. Speedrunning wise, that takes about half an hour for me to get to. And it took them an hour and 45 minutes, or like an hour and 35 minutes. So I got to do the comparisons here. I'm like an hour and 10 minutes faster than the show. I'll have to keep track of that. But yeah, I'll try and do like a review. I don't even know if I just did a review. I just kind of listed off some things that, again, I'm not like a professional YouTube movie or TV reviewer. I just like Last of Us, okay? And again, I want you all to know that just because I am the Last of Us speedrunner guy, that doesn't mean like I don't care about Last of Us. My origins with this franchise are because I loved the game's story so much all those years ago. So yeah, let's do this again in a week, and we'll talk about the second episode, and I'll talk about some things that are the same or different, if I think it's better, if it's not, and just talk about how the performances are. Still waiting for the infected. The runners in this. I thought the infected were good. I couldn't tell if like the infected in the house that Sarah went into, if it had like these weird things crawling out of its mouth, or if it was just hair that the infected was eating. I couldn't really tell. As for the runners, their movements were very like spastic, and they were very uncoordinated. Kind of added to the creepiness of it all. But yeah, we saw very little of that. I'm looking forward to seeing more of them, seeing the more like physical deformities that'll happen because of it. And yeah, there weren't any spores. That's something that they also talked about they were doing away with. They're replacing them with tendrils instead of spores. With tendrils are basically just like spiraling plants. it's whatever. Maybe it'll be better for TV, and we just don't know it yet. But yeah, that's episode 1. Look forward to episode 2. And yeah, that's about it. See you guys. Bye.